Good evening, and welcome to my June Facebook Live Town Hall meeting. I'm coming to you live once again from my home here in Shelby Township, where I will be looking to discuss with you some of the issues that you care about as we approach the August Republican primary. Now, I'm just checking to see if this has started, and there it is. A little low. Got to adjust on the fly here. So I'm here to discuss with you some of the issues that are most important. So over the last month, I've been campaigning very regularly, talking to people at their doors, and it's been very educational to know what issues people are caring about. Of course, some of the things we talked about last month were of prime most importance. Number one is still roads here in Michigan. It's still the thing that most people are talking about, and it's still the thing that we need to work on first that is, if the current legislature does nothing between now and when I would be up there in January, if I'm so fortunate to be elected. So that's the issue that's most concerning to people. And here's what I've been telling them. The road funding formula is outdated. It was made for 1951. It's no longer 1951. It's the 21st century. And our roads are mostly maintained at the county level. About 10,000 miles of road are maintained at the state level. 100,000 miles of road are maintained at the county level. So, in my opinion, we need to be increasing funding for our local municipalities, our local counties, for them to have road money to fix roads they have. For example, most of us in Macomb County know about Mound Road. In fact, my wife's family business is on Mound Road at 16 Mile. She drives a Jeep. I don't. She doesn't trust me driving my car on Mound some days. She has the Jeep, though, so she can afford the off-roading feel that Mound Road sometimes has. But that just shows the point of why we need to increase funding for these, so that we know that we can count on these roads being better for the long run. Another one that's not talked about as much is Garfield, because actually I grew up and I worked on Garfield when I was in high school and college. I worked at Garfield and Canal at both the Kroger and the Kmart there. Unfortunately, the Kmart closed. So that road, again, is in terrible condition because of increased traffic, because of things like that. So we need to increase our road funding for our counties. That's where I think the money can do the most good, is at the local level where it's needed the most and where we can do the most good with the most money. So where are we going to take that from? Again, with that 10-time imbalance between the state and the counties, I think we can take a little bit out of the state and take it towards the counties. Am I going to get the formula I'd love? No, I doubt that very much, because I don't think anyone would like the formula that I like except for me, because I would like a lot more money going to the counties. But I think we should really look at that in terms of what we can do. I know there are proposals based on lane miles or based on other things out there, but I think that that's the thing that we need to look at most is our roads here in Michigan and how we fund them. The other thing we need to look at in that is the quality of the roads. One of the things that people say is, oh, well, they're built to the specs, they're built to the specifications. We don't know why they're not working. Well, if the specifications aren't good, then we need to update our specifications. One of the other things that's not as much talked about in terms of roads is that when someone has to do a repair on the road, we need to make sure that we're taking care of everything at once. Not just the road on the top, which we all see, but the infrastructure underneath, any water lines, electrical lines, other utility lines underneath it. If we have a road up, let's go a little bit further down and say, okay, what needs to be upgraded so that we're not re-tearing this road up in a few years? In fact, when I was younger, I remember quite vividly, they repaved the road that was in front of the house I grew up in, which was Canal Road in Clinton Township. And then a few years later, it was repaved. And I asked, why did they repave it? They just paved it a few years ago. And the answer was, well, they had to go in and fix a water line. So again, one of those things that we can look at in terms of efficiency and making sure we're not doing the same job over and over again. The other thing that's been coming up a lot is, of course, auto insurance rates. This is the one that had a bit of a personal touch for me the other day, which gave me a unique perspective on it. My father has a motorcycle, a Harley Davidson. I still don't know how to ride it, and if I did, I think there are other members of my family who would not be very happy with me because, I'm not used to it. He's not riding it at the moment, but he had to completely drop the insurance on it because he just wanted to have insurance just to store it, just to keep it in the garage and make sure that if anyone stole it or if, this garage burned down or something happened to it, he would be covered. But he was told that no, even if you're not planning on driving it, you still have to pay the medical liability fee. So he said, well, instead of doing that, instead of paying the MCCA fee, which is $170, and in, what is this, the 26th, in 5 days will be going up to $192, he just dropped insurance altogether. So if there is something that happens to the house or the garage, or there is something that, if someone breaks in the garage and takes it, he's not covered. And I've run into this another time or two when I've been on knocking on doors. Like I've noticed once or twice someone has a covered car out front, which is their summer driver. And they say, well, what happens in the winter? Oh, I just drop insurance. Well, what happens if something happens to it? We just have to take that risk because they don't want to pay the fee. So I think that one thing we need to look at is storage auto insurance. This would allow you to store your vehicle, protect it against theft, protect it against acts of God, or anything else that could harm it, but you wouldn't be able to take it on the street and be street legal because you wouldn't have to pay the MCCA fee. I think that's a fair compromise to say, well, I plan on not using this, but I want to make sure it's covered in case of things that happen when something is stationary. This is Michigan. We luckily don't have hurricanes. We luckily don't have some other things, but we do have tornadoes occasionally. We do have high windstorms that knock trees down that could harm a vehicle that's parked. So I think that's a fair thing that we can look at and say that if we have those vehicles that we don't use year-round, we should be able to have a storage auto insurance that is not street legal. So if you get pulled over and you show them your insurance thing, it will say for storage only, not street legal. Hello, Sandra. I'm trying to look at the comments out of the corner of my eye. I had a bit of an issue apparently last time trying to keep up when questions were asked because sometimes the real time showing up on my screen didn't work. So if you have a question, if I don't see it, try to hit it once or twice and I'll see if I can make sure I get to it. Or if you want, I do have the laptop open in front of me, so if you IM me or the campaign website, I will try and keep up with those as well if you have a question for me that you'd like to see answered. Another thing that came up that was a little bit more unusual, though, and an issue that I hadn't thought of running at this level, was a lot of the people in Washington were talking about their water rates. Now, we've had a lot of discussion over water affordability where it comes to Detroit, where people can't afford to pay their water bills and water shut off, and those are some of the things that have been going on. However, Washington Township has a very high water rate for two primary reasons. Thank you, Sandra, I'll get to that. The water pumping station for the Great Lakes Water Authority, formerly the Detroit Water Department, is on 8 Mile. And so the further away you are from the water pump station, the more expensive it is. Also, Washington, and my niece can tell you this from knocking on doors, is elevated and it has hills. So if you have to go uphill, again, it gets more expensive. So those are some of the reasons why that Washington has a higher water rate than some people on that. So what I would like to do is work with the Great Lakes Water Department to say, okay, maybe we need to build a secondary pumping plant closer to upper Macomb County where the growth is happening. And so, the people in my area who are on city water instead of being on wells have, access to somewhere that's a little bit less expensive for them. So that's something I'd like to look at long run and work with the stakeholders and work with, the local municipalities. Say, okay, which municipality would be interested in this? Because, Washington Township's so far away from the pumping station. I know Shelby is less expensive. That's where I personally am, so I know that, but it's still far away from 8 Mile. Macomb Township, Lenox, Chesterfield, I'm looking at, where the growth is happening. And where the growth is projected to keep happening. Northern Macomb Township is still growing a lot. Shelby Township, I know they're looking at an SAD, Special Assessment District, to do some water in by 25 Mile and Shaner area. So there still is some area development there. So we could look at, okay, we have this northern development, so unless everyone decides to return to Detroit and rebuild, this is going to continue to happen. So maybe we need to look at the water infrastructure, which goes back to infrastructure, which goes back to making sure we are keeping pace with the expansion. Like our roads, to go back to that, are they keeping up with the expansion of building in neighborhoods going north? I know that they're looking at expansion of certain roads going north and south. They were looking at They're working on an expansion of 23 Mile Road. They're looking at the expansion going north of certain roads. I know they got Hayes up to 23 at 5 lanes. Shaner's 5 lanes up to 23, and but you have a lot of development going north of there. So is that a place we're going to have to look at expanding our roads? And what's that going to do to the communities up there? Because there's mostly neighborhoods. There's not a lot of industrial commercial north of there until you get to 26 Mile, which is close to where I live, where you have that little corridor between the freeway and Van Dyke that has a lot of shopping areas on it. And then you lead into Stony Creek, which is, fortunately for me, my backyard. To answer Sandra's question, which is where can we make a donation, you can go online right now to scotczazak.com, and if you're on this video, you can see how to spell the last name, Scott, C-Z-A-S-A-K. Click on the donate button in the upper right-hand corner, and you too can support Scott in this campaign. I have been making a bit of a push the last few days because actually yesterday was my 36th birthday. And since I'm running in the 36th district, I've been asking my friends, family, and people who are supporting me for a birthday donation of $36. In fact, I had a birthday party this weekend at my in-laws' place in Shelby Township. It was great. It was a wonderful time. It only rained twice for 20 minutes, so considering we're supposed to have thunderstorms all day, we're pretty sure the rosaries in the bushes worked. So it only rained a little bit, but a great time was had by those who came. A couple of people brought their kids who went in the pool. In fact, one person brought her daughter, and another person brought their son. Never met. They were both fish for about 3 or 4 hours, and the daughter didn't want to leave. I can understand that. When I was that age, I wouldn't want to leave an area with a pool either. So that's, to answer Sandra's question, that's where you can go and donate. You can donate online at scotczazak.com. In the upper right-hand corner, just click the donate button. It'll take you right to my donation website. It's a secure website. It will not do anything for your credit card information. In fact, if I have to go back and look, I've almost raised about half the money I've raised through online donations. So I really do appreciate it. They do charge me a small transaction fee, but for your convenience, I'm willing to, pay that small convenience fee so you can do, that from home with a credit card as opposed to having to write a check and mail it to me or find me live and in person and hand me a check. So I understand either way. So if you are wanting to support me and you want to make a donation, I would eternally gratefully appreciate it. Campaigns run on time and money, and trust me, I've had a lot of time. I've been knocking on a lot of doors. Because one of the issues when you're as tall as I am, I'm 6'5", is that your knees are some of the first things to go. So I started to wear knee braces just to make sure I don't screw myself up any much, and they've worked so far. I've been feeling good doing it. I've been tremendously impressed talking to so many people, though. It's been tremendous to get out there and meet so many people and see what they're talking about, because I don't tell people, do you think roads are the biggest issue or auto insurance or something else? I ask them, what matters to you? Because I think the operative word in representative is represent. I want to be your next state representative, not because of my own ambition or because of, that I want a better title than I had, or, I want a, job in Lansing. Trust me, I've had a job in Lansing. I don't enjoy the commute as much. I don't enjoy the commute, especially in the wintertime. I really don't enjoy the commute in the wintertime, but I'm willing to do that because I believe in public service. I believe in service. I believe in representing, and I believe that the consistent conservative values that I have, which again are right there, I think they best represent the 36th district. I think they represent the people who are running to go serve in Lansing. This is an area that is very conservative, voted for Donald Trump, want to see that conservative values put into practice. They're business owners, they're families, they're citizens of this country who, just want to make it through the next day, make their paycheck, and have some, time with the family. These aren't hard things to do, and I think that I can work on those. And I think we need to be doing that. So I see some more people have joined. Wonderful. So if you have questions, if you have things you want my feedback on, or you want to ask me about, please feel free to ask me in the comments. If they don't pop up immediately, or if there's an issue, try IMing either me personally or the campaign Facebook page. I will try and do it. It's a little interesting to try and do it, looking over here, but that's what I'm doing these for, is because I want to be able to interact with you and answer your questions from the comfort of your own home. Instead of trying to get you out somewhere, you can come in, ask a question, and leave if you need to. Or you can come in, see what's going on, and move forward. But before we get into anything, so I give a few minutes for people to get in and ask questions, I do want to point something out, and it's right behind me. I got to check which orientation I am. It's right over here. My yard signs have arrived, and actually I have a few up here in the district, so if you see it, please leave it alone. But if you are interested in having one, and you too can have one of these wonderful things sitting in front of your house, please just send me a message on Instant Messenger. give me a call. The cell phone number is 586-697-0184. So that, you can call me, you can text me, or you can send an email to scott@scottsazak.com and just give me your address, and I will happily come out and give you a yard sign, or one for you, one for your neighbor. So if you're in Bruce Township, the Village of Romeo, Washington Township, or about the top two-thirds of Shelby Township, again, please let me know if you'd like a yard sign, you'd like to show your support for this campaign. I would really greatly appreciate it. I mean, when you decide to run for office, one of the natural nerves is, are people going to support me? Are people going to want me to do this? And it's truly humbling and overwhelming how many people, just from a short conversation, have said, you know what, I like what you say, I'm going to support you. Or, you know what, you actually answered my question. You didn't just dance around, so I'm going to support you. And in one case, there was someone who had an issue with something, and it was something I would have been able to do in my previous position, but I couldn't do it anymore. So I said, you know what, here's what you need to do. You need to call this person, talk to this person, get this thing done. And because I knew that process, because I could tell them how they could seek the help they needed, they were eternally grateful for that, and they said, you know what, we're going to support you. And in one case, this is where, someone from the state party may be a little annoyed with me. I walked in the door, and the person, even though they were labeled as a Republican on my list, said, oh, no, I'm a Democrat, and here's why. And, I said, you probably don't want to listen to me. I'm like, no, I want to listen to you. I will listen to it. I want to represent everyone. I want to listen to everyone. I may not always agree. The only person I pretty much agree with all the time is my wife, and that's because I'm a smart husband. But I do believe in listening, and I do believe in, even when you don't agree with someone, if you want to represent them, you should at least hear them out. You should at least understand why they believe what they believe. So that's something I wholeheartedly believe in, is listening to people. I hate to use the Frasier line, I'm listening, but it kind of is, the right thing to say, is I do want to listen. I do want to know what's going on with you. I want to know what your questions are. So that's why, again, I'm just trying to take a quick little look-see and see if there's anything going on that I need to see. I don't see any questions yet, except for what Sandra asked, so... even if you're not a constituent, even if you're someone who's just joining me because you're a friend or a family member or something else, you might have a question that people that out here may have the same question, so I could answer that. So if you have anything on your mind that you want to ask about, please feel free. Again, I'm not shy. If something's too personal, I'll say so. But if you have a policy question, I want to answer as best I can. So, excuse me one second. So again, I'm here for you for the next few minutes. Last time we went about an hour, and depending on the questions and answers, I don't know if we're going to go that long because I don't want to repeat myself. I've already touched on roads, the auto no fault, some of the water issues I've heard about in Washington Township. So those are the kind of things I've been hearing about a lot on doors. There's of course been feedback on the president, and what do you think of the president? Do you like him? Do you not like him? Do you like his tweets? Do you like it? And I'll say to you what I say to everyone else. I'm happy he's president. I would occasionally like it if he didn't say some of the things on Twitter, especially when things are going well, and it gives the media an excuse to go veer off into other territories. But I think people, they blame him too much for saying, oh, it's making our politics more toxic. The problem I see is what I've seen that's disturbing me in relation to the election and with the president is, when George W. Bush was president, the media and a lot of the people who didn't like him, they made fun of him. And when you're the man in the arena, as Theodore Roosevelt said, when you're the person running for office, you expect that. You know that some people are not going to like you. You know that you're not going to make everyone happy. What's different, though, and what disturbs me, is the people who used to just make fun of the person are now making fun of us, the voters. They're saying, the voters are stupid. The voters are out of touch. The voters are racist or sexist or homophobes or Islamophobes or whatever. That's what I think is dangerous, is that we're not just talking about the politicians. People are attacking the voters now. And I think that's something that I am afraid of in the future for what that's going to mean, because we can have disagreements, but acknowledge that we're individuals, we have the right to our own opinion, and move on. That's why I found some of this stuff that's going on, like with Sarah Sanders in the restaurant and with Maxine Waters, really kind of disturbing. I don't like the idea that we're going to take our politics and make them into some sort of street-on-street action or violence or mob mentality. The Founding Fathers were worried about the mob. They didn't want mob rule. They saw what happened in the French Revolution when the mob took over. It went too far. The tyranny of the majority. A tyranny of the majority is two wolves and a sheep deciding what's for dinner. We don't want that. We live in a representative republic. We live in a, yes, we do have some democratic things, like we know we're going to have votes on certain statewide issues coming up. But we live in a representative republic, so we need to remember that we may disagree on things, and I will fervently disagree with a lot of people, especially on the other side of the aisle. But that doesn't mean I can't treat them with respect, even though I disagree with them. And I think that's something that we need to make sure we do, is we can disagree fervently. And trust me, I disagree fervently with the ideals and what the left wants to do. But I don't have to sink to the level of saying that I'm going to go walk over to where the nearest Democrat politician is and stand outside their house and yell at them. I don't think that's the way we should be conducting ourselves. So if that makes me a little bit too nice, sorry, but that's just the kind of guy I am. So that's some of the things that's been going on. That's some of the things that I've been seeing. So if there's any other questions, I'm still looking through my comments. I haven't seen anything recently, which doesn't mean it's not happening. But again, last time someone else was asking questions they couldn't get through, and my wife was actually watching from work, and she started pinning the questions on so that I could see them. So if there's any questions that are not coming through, like I said, I'm trying as best I can with the technology I have. But again, this is why I'm doing this, so that you can watch from the comfort of your own home, ask questions, get them answered, and know what the person who wants to be your next state representative is talking about. So, let's see. It doesn't look like I have an IM, but it's not related to the town hall, so I'll have to answer that person later. So, let's take a look and see what else has been going on that I think we should be addressing in the area. So we talked about roads, we talked about auto no fault, we talked about water. Water. That's the other thing that came up in a meeting, which I have to address. It's been raised, actually it started being raised by my former boss, Representative Lucido, and it was also just addressed by former Congresswoman and now Macomb Public Works Commissioner Candace Miller. And that is the issue of Nestle and the water that they're taking for bottling out in, I think it's in Northwest Michigan, I believe is where the town is. I understand the concern with taking the levels of water out of that area. I understand that you don't want to affect the aquifer, and I understand that we don't want to deplete our natural resources that are going to be shipped out of our area and sold for profit. I understand that all completely, and I can't disagree with the statement that the process by which Nestle got approved for their permit to get more water out left a lot to be desired. The fee, I think, was too low. I think if they're going to do a commercial use, they should have a commercial fee. I don't want to do a per gallon tax because, again, I'm not in favor of tax hikes, but I think if we have a fee for a commercial use, that it should be reflective of the commercial use, and I don't think that's unfair. But I also can't blame the company for following the rules. So, in my opinion, what we need to say is the rules process for what they're doing fair and equitable, and is it accomplishing the goals that the rules are supposed to set out for? The other thing is I have to have some perspective, and I looked at a lot of statistics on this, and I looked at the DEQ's reports on a lot of these things. The numbers sound big when you talk about them. Nestle is going to taking 200 million gallons of water a year, and they're going to up that to 450 million gallons of water a year out of that aquifer. Those are large numbers. They are very large numbers. Here's another large number, though, and it's why we need to look at this as it's a bigger issue than just Nestle. When we look at industrial or commercial use of water, the number one user of water in Michigan is actually U.S. Steel. They use 137 million gallons a day. What that Nestle plant wants to take in a year, they use in about 2 or 3 days. So again, water is a right. Water that's underneath your land, if you hold the mineral rights, you have a right to it. So like the people up in Bruce, Washington, and some in Shelby who are still on wells, you have a right to dig down 25 feet, put a pump in there, bring the water up for your own personal use. That is your right as a landowner. And I would never, ever want to take away your rights as a landowner. Nestle owns the land, they're allowed to do that, but because they're using the volume they're using, they do need to go through environmental protection. And I absolutely believe they should. And I think they should pay a reasonable fee to the state for that permitting process. But we also want to make sure that we're not affecting people who this would affect also. One of the biggest users of water from the aquifers are farmers. We want to make sure that our farmers have the ability to use the water that's on their land to grow their crops, to make money, and to feed us. So again, it's a complex question without an easy answer. I think that we need to look at not the one case that got a lot of attention, because again, they followed the rules. I'm saying we need to look at the rules themselves and say, are the rules working for us? Are they working for the people here in Michigan? So if that needs to be adjusted, then that's something I think we should work on. But just focusing on one company at a time, that's not the big picture. The big picture is, are the rules working for Michigan? Are the rules working for us? So that's my thoughts on it. I don't buy Nestle bottled water, but I don't buy bottled water at all. I buy bottles and fill them with tap water. So that's just my own personal thing that I do, because it's less expensive to just buy a little bottle and fill it with tap water than to buy bottles of water. That's my own personal thing. Or in this case, I will be using a mug. By the way, thank you to my mother-in-law, Charlene, for getting me these mugs. They're not technically, I can't give them away because they don't have paid for by language, but they are quite useful. So the other issue that's come up a few times in terms of water, in terms of our natural resources, has been the Enbridge Line 5 up in Mackinac. So it's about 60 years old. It's one of the most inspected pipelines in the world because of its nature of being under the Great Lakes. But due to shifts in the sand and due to shifts in the land since it was put in, more of it has been exposed and more of it is raised above the floor, above the lake bed. And recently there was an issue where someone who had an anchor out when they shouldn't have had an anchor out struck it. So there has been a proposal, and again, I haven't done the full research on this to know every detail about it, but they have done the proposal to dig a tunnel underneath the Straits of Mackinac, feet underneath the lake bed, and feed not just a replacement for Line 5, but other utilities and other things through there so that they can be easily inspected by opening up that area. So that's something I think that is a possible long-term solution to this. One thing that people say is, oh, just shut it down, we don't have any, we don't need it. If there's capacity in other pipelines to do that, I don't know if there is. Some people have said there is. Some people have said there isn't. I don't have any independent verification of that. However, I'm going to sound like Superman here. Statistically speaking, pipelines are the safest way to move those necessary resources. Until such time as they become unnecessary, they are a necessary resource. When pipelines break, it's bad because it spreads quickly and it's a large-scale disaster. But if you don't have the pipeline, you have to move all of that oil and natural gas through either trucks or trains. And I don't want that much truck traffic carrying oil across the Mackinac Bridge, because if one of those spills, it's not as horrific as an oil spill under the Straits of Mackinac, but there's a community that can be ruined. There's a community there, wherever that truck gets an accident, that has an ecological disaster. Same thing with a train. If a train derails, I believe this happened in, I want to say Pennsylvania a couple of years ago. There was an oil train shipment that derailed, and it caused an ecological disaster in just that area. Because it wasn't in a lake, it didn't spread through water, but it was still an ecological disaster in that area. So we need to be responsible. We need to look at our infrastructure. Again, it all comes back to infrastructure. It all comes back to, what are we doing to make sure that those things that we use in order to keep life moving, keep life moving? There are things we see. All of us see the roads. We all feel the roads. My shocks feel the roads. In fact, I have another friend that is campaigning out in Oakland County, and he had a short online video the other day that when he was out knocking doors, he hit a pothole and got a flat tire. In fact, it happened to me when I went to the Oakland County Lincoln dinner about a month ago. I got a flat tire, and I had to sit there outside in my suit and change the tire. Thankfully, it wasn't too cold or warm, and it wasn't raining on me. I did have a nice dry cleaning bill, so I should be sending that to the state of Michigan as well, along with my flat tire. But, took it, got it plugged, and, good as new. But what we learned here in Macomb County after the 15-mile interceptor collapse, the sinkhole, which that's the official name for it, the sinkhole. is that the infrastructure underneath us, we need to be paying more attention to. And I'm going to give Commissioner Miller a tremendous load of credit for the work she's been doing to make up for the, quite frankly, the negligence that was perpetuated by her predecessor. The fact that we had found illegal hookups at so many places that were feeding raw sewage directly into the sanitary sewer pipeline that goes right into the lake. Those are things that I'm very glad to see getting done under her watch. So we need to worry about the infrastructure underneath us, like the pipelines, oil and natural gas pipelines, our electrical lines, water lines. Whenever there's a water line, it bursts and a road has to be repaired. Things get shut down. It happens more in winter because of the freeze-thaw cycle, but it does happen. So there's a lot of infrastructure needs. Are we spending enough on infrastructure? Probably not. But do you want to raise taxes to do that? I don't. I don't believe in raising taxes. It's why, and it's in my drawer, otherwise I'd show it to you, it's why I signed the no tax pledge. It's why I said to the residents of the 36th district, to the citizens of the 36th district, that I will not raise taxes because I don't believe in raising taxes. In fact, I think our taxes are too high right now. I think the temporary freeze of the rollback of the income tax. If you remember, our income tax in the state was 3.9%. Governor Granholm, in her infinite wisdom, during one of her late night, in the middle of the night shutdown sessions, said, give me a temporary tax increase to 4.35 and we'll roll it back every year until it goes back to 3.9, because this was during the recession and that was the only solution she would accept. I didn't agree with it then. I still don't agree with it now. I think there were more cuts to be made. And the Republican legislature over the last 8 years has shown you can make cuts. In fact, the budget they just passed actually was a net decrease. Not, didn't go up as fast as inflation. Actually was a decrease in the budget, in the general budget. So the Republican legislature has been very responsible. But I think that when the rate got frozen at 4.25, when Governor Snyder came in, I think it's about time, it's past time for us to roll that back to 3.9 where it belongs. Now, if we need to do it slowly so we can make the spending adjustments, I am fine with that. 1/10 of a point a year, 1/2 of a tenth of a point a year, as long as we get there. That's what's the most important. The other tax that I think we need to get rid of is the pension tax. It's just unfair. That's taxing people on something that they planned on not being taxed. That's taking from people that which they should not have been taken. So I don't believe in that. Now, someone recently talked to me about pensions, talked to me about government pensions, and asked me, do you believe that people should lose their pensions? And I told this person, absolutely not. Apparently, there had been some misconstrued. I don't know if it was about me in particular or about Republicans in general. I more tend to believe it was about Republicans in general. I do not believe in taking away anybody's pension, especially people who have their pensions through the state of Michigan or a local municipality. Those pensions are constitutionally protected in Michigan. The only person who can take those away are a federal bankruptcy judge, and I'm not running for that. So I don't believe in taking away people's pensions. However, we have to recognize facts. And one fact is that we have a number of municipalities, some of them in the 36th district, that have woefully underfunded their pension account, or what's called their OPEB account, which stands for Other Post-Retirement Benefits, or Post-Employment Benefits, which could mean retiree health care, retire or something, or other things like that, whatever that was negotiated. I don't want emergency managers having to come into the local municipalities here in this district, because I don't want to see what they would do to some of the areas in this district because of the gross underfunding of some of these accounts. However, I also am not in favor of state bailouts. I am absolutely not in favor of state bailouts, because once you open that door, the state's just going to have to pay everything off. And so, like Shelby Township and Washington Township took the proactive steps that their pension plans are mostly funded. I think Shelby's pension fund is at 95% funding. I think that was the number I saw on the Mackinac Center website. Their other post-retirement benefits is a little bit under that. I want to say like 60 or 70%. Washington, I think, is fully funded on both. Bruce and Romeo are underwater. I don't want emergency managers coming into those two towns and saying, okay, we're going to shut down the police force, shut down the fire force, contract it out. We're going to sell property, slash and burn, as emergency managers do. I think it's a necessary tool when there's an extreme financial disaster in a town, but I don't want our towns to get to that point. So I want to work with them, find them the necessary resources, find them the tools they need in order to help themselves get on a plan that says, okay, we're going to start ramping up our payments into our pension plans, into our OPEB plans, so that we can pay these off and we can deliver on what was promised. I am a big fan and proponent of delivering what was promised. So that's what I think on pensions and what people say about pensions. Private pensions, that's between you and your company. Government doesn't get involved in that. That's between you. Like if you have a GM pension, if you have a Chrysler pension, Ford pension, that is outside of that's not something that the government gets in the middle of, except, right now to take taxes out of it. So that's, on government pensions, I don't want to take them away. They're constitutionally protected, so even if I wanted to, I couldn't. And again, I don't want to. But we need to make sure that our local municipalities have the tools and we work with them to say what needs to happen. We recently had legislation passed that gives us more requirements for disclosure, And I think that's a good step. I think that we need to know what the problem is before we can start looking at solutions. Too often we have people throw out solutions in search of a problem. What we need is to look at the problem, say, okay, what will work? What's going to work best? And it may not be a one-size-fits-all solution. In fact, I'm almost certain it won't be. I'm almost certain it won't be a one-size-fits-all solution. That it'll be multiple solutions from multiple places. Or we'll have different options, option A, option B, option C. Those are things that I think we should look at and we should work on. Since I bring up disclosure, there was another issue that was recently asked of me, not by a person when I was out campaigning, but by an organization that was looking at asking candidates questions, was about transparency. As you may or may not know, all candidates are required to disclose their donors and expenses on a regular basis. Personally, because I filed to run for this office back in September, I had to file a report in October, one in January, and I will not have to file another one until July. So you do not know between January and July who's giving you money, what am I spending it on, you don't, because it's not required disclosure under the law. So I believe we should have a more frequent disclosure policy. Now, I can understand if we want to have separate disclosure policies or timelines for donors versus expenses, because candidates don't want to give away strategy by saying, okay, I have to report every week if I paid for a mailing or if I bought an order of signs. I can understand that. But I think we should know in fairly efficient ways when you have gotten donations. For instance, as I said, I had my 36th birthday party on Saturday. I received a number of donations. I'm very grateful to every single one of you who did. And if you didn't, you can go to scottsazek.com and you can contribute. In fact, I see my wife has put a link in the comments. So thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that and I love you. So I think we should be required to disclose more often. Now, the other thing about transparency, though, is transparency in Lansing. Michigan has been regarded as one of the worst states in terms of transparency. So I think we need to work on that, and I think we need to look at the proposal that passed unanimously in the State House this past term, and it needs the Senate to pass it as well. Unfortunately, the Senate Majority Leader has said he's not interested in passing it this time. And if he's not going to cooperate, then unfortunately that's a block. However, starting next term, we will have a new Senate Majority Leader, a new Senate Majority, a new Senate. But I think the House will still, even though we'll have a lot of new members of the House, hopefully myself included, I think that appetite for transparency will still be in the House. So I'd like to hope that whoever the next Senate Majority Leader is, and whoever's in the next Senate, especially those House members that have already voted on it, that we would be passing things to open up the legislative records for people to examine. There are obvious exemptions. We don't want to disclose personal information about people, or, if constituents have questions about, their welfare, their food stamps, or their Medicaid, we don't want to get into those issues, obviously. There's exemptions, of course. But you should know more about the legislature, not less. You should know more about the governor's office, not less. You should know more about all of it, not less. And honestly, you should know more about me, not less. One thing we do not have in Michigan, which I would like to see, is a financial disclosure for all elected officials at the state level. If we want to do local, I wouldn't mind either, but for my purposes, I believe that we should have financial disclosures at the state level, similar to what they do at the congressional level. All congressmen and women and senators have to disclose their assets. So, the value of their home, their bank accounts, their investments, any commercial property, etc., etc., etc. They give ranges. So, like, they could say your house is worth between $500,000 and $1 million, and you have between $100,000 and $500,000 in the bank. You don't have to give exact numbers, but you give ranges. I think that's something that we should do here in Michigan, so that not just so that you know who's paying, you should know what we have and what we're benefiting, and if we're benefiting from being in the state legislature. Now, in my case, I have a condo, which is technically, my wife's condo that I moved into when we got married. I have my bank account. We have our joint account. We don't own any commercial property. So my financial disclosure would be quite simple. And it would show that I am actually just a person who's looking to make a difference and not someone who, wants to financially benefit. Right now, if you're going to financially benefit from a bill, you have to voluntarily stand up and say, when the bill comes up for a vote, Mr. Speaker, I wish to abstain because I may have a financial interest in this. Well, again, we're asking you to trust your word or to know that you have financial interest. So I think we need increased transparency, and I think we need those financial disclosures so that we know where our lawmakers and our representatives, senators, governor, attorney general, secretary of state, everybody, where their assets are and where they're benefiting, if any, from being in the legislature or being in government. You shouldn't go into public service. You shouldn't go into the legislature to become enriched. You should do it because you have a desire to serve the community. A desire that I have very much so is to serve my community. Someone asked me again that, why, that's the other common question you get. Why are you running? Why are you running? Why are you running? For me, it's simple. I want to do great things for our community. I want to do great things for Macomb County, and I want to do great things for Michigan. And being part of a Republican majority that has done great things for the last 8 years would be a tremendous honor. Now, no one can follow Representative Lucido. I know that. I've worked for him for the last 5 years. He is a unique breed. In fact, I don't think I have never met anyone with his level of passion. However, I do believe that of the people running in the Republican primary currently, that I have the most experience and I have the most passion to do this job and to do it well. And you can tell that if you follow my Facebook page and see exactly what I've been doing in the community, what I've been showing up to. I've been at everything. I've been at things all over the time. I've been to board meetings for our local municipalities. Excuse me. I haven't gotten to everyone yet, but I'm trying to get out there just to show that I want to be an involved person. I'd love to be able to, as state representatives, go to these local township and village board meetings every once in a while, call it quarterly because there's 4 of them, and just give a brief update every few minutes, just like, look, this is what's going on, this is what's happening. Is there anything you guys want me to take back to Lansing to say, look, this is what the local governments are talking about? That's something I say when people bring up a federal issue to me when I'm at the doors is, that's not what I'm covering, but I'd love to be able to bring it up to the next level and tell them this is what the people in my district are talking about. So, I've been sitting here talking for a while, and it doesn't look like I have any other questions at this time. So, we're just going to, it looks like unless someone has a question in the next minute or two, it looks like I'm going to wrap this up. Excuse me. So, right now, the other thing I'd like to announce is keep your eyes on the Facebook page. I will be having a series of announcements tomorrow and probably Friday or Saturday about some very big endorsements from local people who are supporting my campaign or supporting me to be the next state representative. I'm very humbled by these people's support, and I'm looking forward to working with them if I'm so fortunate enough to be elected. The other thing is that starting this Saturday, I'm having what I'm calling Knock with Scott, which is where if you come to the Meyer parking lot at 26 and Van Dyke in Washington Township at 10 a.m., I will be there with materials and lists for people who want to help and go knock on doors for me. If you want to do it for a couple of hours, if you want to do it all day with me, either one works. If you can't be there at 10, you need to meet me at a later time, just call me or text me. Again, it's 586-697 0184. So call or text me, send me an email at scott@scottsazak.com, and let me know if you can volunteer on a Saturday to go knock doors with me. I'll meet you or have you meet me wherever I am. I'll give you materials. Now, I'm using a phone app to walk because I find it easier than carrying papers. I bring my tablet with me, and with the occasional technology issue, because who doesn't have a technology issue every now and then? That's how I knock on doors. It tells me who to go to. I ask the questions I ask. I give people my information and say, and I always tell them, that's my cell phone number, that's my email address. Reach out, talk to me, tell me whatever's going on that you think is important. And I've had a few people reach out to me and say, this is what I thought was important, or you left this on my door. Why? What's this for? So, I'm very glad to hear from people. I'm glad to hear from constituents. If you have another day that you want to go out knocking with me, I'm knocking doors every day unless it's a thunderstorm. Even with off and on rain, I try and get in between the raindrops. But if you have a day you want to help out, feel free. Call me, email me, text me, anything. Get a hold of me. I am willing to work around your schedule if you want to help me, because that's, again, the thing that's most inspiring and most humbling about this whole experience has been the amount of people who say, I want to help. What can I do? How can I help? So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for people who are willing to help me between now and August 6th knock on doors. Last thing I'm asking is on August 7th, primary election day. There's 35 precincts in this district, and there are about 27 different polling locations, because a couple of them have two locations in one place, or two precincts in one location. I'm looking for people to stand outside the polls, hand out maybe a piece of candy and say, here's something sweet from Scott Sazak, please vote for him. If you're willing to do that, please, again, give me a call, 586-697-0184. Send me an email, scott@scottsazak.com. Send me a message through Facebook here. I'd be happy to help. I'd be happy to help sign you up. You can do just in the morning, just in the evening. Prime time is between around 8 to 10 and around 5 to 9 o'clock. When people are off, when people are going to work and then voting or coming home. If you have any time on that day, on that Tuesday, that you could stand outside a poll, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. We'll provide all the materials. You just need to bring yourself. I always recommend a lawn chair and some sunblock. It is August, after all, and it is Michigan. So, next one of these, though, I'm just checking my calendar. I will be doing another one of these Facebook Live Town Halls on Tuesday, July 24th at 7 p.m. Again, right here, live at 7 p.m. If you have questions then, if you have questions between now and then, feel free to send them to me. I try and respond within about, a few minutes on Facebook. Luckily, everything pops on my phone, so in between doors, if I have a buzz that says, hey, I got a new message, I'll respond and then, go back to knocking on doors. So, with that, since it's about 7:50 and I'm checking one last time for any questions, it doesn't look like anyone has anything they need answered. I should start calling out people by name, but I won't do that because it does say who's joined. So I could look at this and say, oh, I know that person. Maybe they have a question. So with that, I'm going to wrap this up. It's been tremendous to talk to you for these last few minutes, and it's been a real joy to go out and meet people and work for this and, really get in there and talk to people about becoming your next state representative. I really do believe that I am the consistent conservative who has the right principles and right knowledge and right experience to fight for you in Lansing to help drive Michigan forward. So with that, thank you very much for joining me. If you have any questions after you viewed this, or if you view this later, please feel free to, again, call me, 586-697-0184, scott@scottsazak.com, or message me here on Facebook. This will also be up on my YouTube channel if you want to check that out. Just go to YouTube, search Scott Sazak. All my videos are archived there, so this should be up shortly, depending on how long it takes to download and re-upload into YouTube. So with that, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for taking the time to watch and to ask questions and to be interested in who's your next state representative. I hope to see you out there on the campaign trail, either on your door or helping me at a door. So with that, thank you and good night.